Topping today's news, Prime Minister Philip Davis tables the long-awaited fiscal strategy report. Prime Minister Davis and former Prime Minister Dr. Newss butt heads over the state of the healthcare system. U.S. and Bahamian law enforcement agencies, they hook up to fight against trafficking in firearms, and the new mental health bill ready to be in effect. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Newss. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. It was a war of words between Prime Minister Philip Davis and Killarney Member of Parliament, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, as both hurled accusations at each other regarding the state of the country's tertiary health care facility, the Princess Margaret Hospital. As parliamentarians wrapped up debate on the Nurses and Midwives Bill 2022, both accused the other of neglecting the hospital. Lassie Bastian has more in this next report.
The evening session in the lower chamber saw tensions flare as both Prime Minister Philip Davis and former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis hurled accusations at each other over the state of the Princess Margaret Hospital. Parliamentarians debated the Nurses and Midwives Bill 2022 on Wednesday, and during his contribution to the debate, Dr. Minnis charged that the Davis administration is failing miserably as it relates to protecting and preserving the Bahamas for Bahamians, and that includes the state of healthcare facilities across the country. He questioned what actions the Prime Minister and his administration took with regards to PMH when Prime Minister Davis first assumed office and toured the facilities back in 2021. Add to that, Dr. Minnis questioned whether the Prime Minister was serious about comments he made to the media following a tour of the hospital this past Saturday.
The nation was surprised the other day to see the Prime Minister expressing shock and surprise at the conditions at PMH. But here's what he said in 2021, Mr. Deputy. During a tour at PMH in September 2001, shortly after the PLP came to office, the Prime Minister said, quote, "It is accepted by all that the state of the hospital is dismal." So what did he do from 2021 to last week to improve the hospital and speed up the process because things were so dismal and bleak? It appears that it was mostly talk and public relations for our globe-trotting leader. If he knew in 2021 that PMH was in such a bad state, how could he last week again appear surprised that the same hospital and healthcare system is in a bad state?
Prime Minister Davis, when he toured PMH with health officials and the media, told reporters that PMH is in crisis, adding that the scenes at the hospital were heart-wrenching. He further noted that the challenges at the hospital are not new. PMH is currently undergoing renovations, but Dr. Minnis criticized Prime Minister Davis for not forging ahead with plans left in place by the previous administration.
The monies were available for a new 4-story tower that was to be placed east of the critical care block. And, Mr. Deputy, this tower would have contained facilities for maternity, child health, and accident emergency, which were supposed to be placed on the ground floor of this tower. Mr. Deputy, this was a design-build tower, which meant that, and this was being done by the Beck Group, which meant, Mr. Deputy, that the tower would have been in its completion stage within the next 3 or 4 months.
In wrapping up the debate, Prime Minister Davis took aim at Dr. Minnis's comments, noting that the Minnis administration left PMH in shambles, adding that Dr. Minnis has no moral standing to speak to the matters at PMH while laying the blame for the state of the hospital squarely at the feet of the former Prime Minister. But he says he will fix the problems left behind.
My visit to the hospital was to see the progress of that effort to fix it. And I was pleased by that effort because a number of the wards had been in disuse for years under your watch. So your whole term, just lay bare, right, depriving the citizens of the beds that were there.
Prime Minister Davis contends that the neglect of our health system in recent years was indefensible. For Jcn News, I'm Lissy Bastian.
Thanks, Lissy. Coming out of Parliament on Wednesday, Prime Minister Philip Davis, who holds responsibility for the Ministry of Finance, tabled two significant policy documents in the government's fiscal calendar year, including the 2022 Fiscal Strategy Report and the 2023-2024 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy, noting that the government's plans to restore fiscal health are working. The tabling of these documents, especially the Fiscal Strategy Report, comes on the heels of Opposition Leader Michael Pintard recently blasting the Davis administration on displaying contempt for the rule of law and for the Bahamian people by not publishing the report in a timely manner, noting that the report should have been made public in November last year. Prime Minister Davis on Wednesday, however, reiterated that there are fundamental flaws in the Fiscal Responsibility Act, saying that it was rushed and poorly constructed by the previous administration. While the Fiscal Responsibility Act required the government to table the 2022-2023 Fiscal Strategy Report in Parliament by November 16th last year, Prime Minister Davis says this date was not feasible.
The Bahamas was in the middle of its Standards & Poor's biannual credit rating review. Tabling such a document would have interfered with the independent review process. I would like to point out to this Honourable House that the results of the S&P Standard & Poor's review were not released until the 22nd of November, 2022. This event was very significant for our country, for the first time in almost a decade, positive signs were observed in the Bahamas credit rating. While the S&P rating did not provide an improved credit rating for the Bahamas, it did provide an improvement in the credit outlook from negative to stable. I point this out to emphasize that this constitutes a reversal of the country's deteriorating credit position. Our plans to restore the country's fiscal health are working.
Prime Minister Davis says with there being a lot of significance placed on the report, the decision was made to defer the release to allow for inclusion of very important details on his administration's projections, policies, and strategy.
In tandem with the most recent Fiscal Strategy Report is the release of the updated Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy. This document also benefits from the country's rebounding credit profile, which is reflected in factors such as interest rates, access to financing, and the overall financing plan. As a result of this analysis, the general outlook is that the fiscal plans implemented by this administration since coming to office are already bearing fruit.
The Fiscal Strategy Report 2022 outlines the government's plans to achieve specific fiscal targets, including revenue yield to more than 24% of GDP, a reduction in government expenditure to less than 23% of GDP, while achieving a budget surplus, all by the fiscal year 2024-2025. The Royal Bahamas Police Force has launched its long-awaited Anti-Gang and Firearms Investigations Task Force, which is expected to help stem the flow of guns being smuggled into the country and into the hands of criminal-minded here in the Bahamas. Our Destiny Johnson has more in this next report.
During the inaugural Firearm Task Force opening ceremony at the Paul Farquharson Conference Center Wednesday afternoon, the Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernandez expressed his excitement for the launch while noting that this has been a long-time dream of his. He says this unit will encompass the coming together of multiple law enforcement agencies to stem the proliferation of illegal firearms, gang violence, and illegal gun smuggling and trafficking in the Bahamas.
Ladies and gentlemen, firearms are used in the commission of more than 90% of all violent crimes in the Bahamas, including murder at the rate of 91% and armed robbery at the rate of 96%. Our intelligence and research is telling us that males under the age of 35 are often the victims and suspects of these violent crimes. We have taken more firearms off our streets in 2022 than we did in 2021. We are losing too many of our young men to crime and gun violence due to the proliferation of illegal firearms being smuggled into our country. And unfortunately, these young men are able to access these illegal firearms.
Now, this task force is not only local, but Commissioner Fernandez says that it will include international partners as well.
I am pleased to announce that the task force is made up of an esteemed group of officers from our local and international partners, including the Defense Force, Bahamas Customs, Immigration, Department of Inland Revenue, and our U.S. partner, ATF, and Homeland Security. These officers are seconded to the task force for a 2-year period, after which we will assess where we are and chart the way forward. We know from our research that these illegal weapons are coming from the United States. This is why our partnership with the United States is so very important in our effort to deal with this problem.
The Charge d'Affaires in the Embassy of the United States of America, Yusha Pitt, explains how important this anti-firearm collaboration is for the Bahamas and the United States of America in tackling this growing problem.
We know that the Bahamas is serious about combating gun crime, and so are we. We have a long history of collaboration. We have been by your side since independence. And we know that the collaboration on the law enforcement side really started to ramp up in the 1980s with the cocaine that was flowing up through the Bahamas to the United States. And so that started our collaboration. Those criminal elements were damaging my country and it was damaging yours. And so we worked very effectively to quash that. But the challenges don't come to an end, they simply evolve. And I believe that this Gun Task Force unit is addressing an evolving threat.
When asked when the unit will begin, the commissioner says that work has already begun in all areas to keep illegal firearms off of the streets. For Jcn News, I'm Destiny Johnson.
Thanks for that report, Destiny. Earlier this week, there was an attempted suicide on the island of Abaco, driving home an already established fact that mental health issues are real here in the Bahamas. On Wednesday in the House of Assembly, the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Michael Dowell, gave an update on the new mental health bill that was introduced and debated in both the House of Assembly and the Senate last year. We hear more from him in this next report. While contributing to the debate on the Nurses and Midwives Bill 2022 that seeks to repeal and replace the current Nurses and Midwives Act 1971, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Michael Dowell revealed that the Mental Health Bill 2022, debated and passed last year in both the House of Assembly and the Senate, is ready to be implemented.
Last year, I laid the Mental Health Bill 2022 in this honorable House, and it was later unanimously passed in both chambers. I want to thank everyone for their support. Today, I am pleased to report that the Mental Health Bill 2022 is finally enacted, and we are preparing to bring it into force in stages in short order.
Minister Dowell was pleased to announce that there are more than 40 nurses currently receiving additional training to help deal with patients suffering from mental health disorders.
I want to thank our Director of Nursing because since that time, 41 nurses are now in postgraduate training programs to become mental health experts in their own right. Last year, I laid in this honorable House the new Nurses and Midwives Bill 2022 for further consultation And today I'm privileged to stand on my feet to move this progressive piece of legislation that seeks to repeal and replace the current Nurses and Midwives Act 1971. Madam Speaker, it's a new day for nurses.
As for the local nursing program, Dr. Darwell explained that after the program evolved, it was moved from the Ministry of Health into the College of the Bahamas, allowing it to be upgraded from a diploma to an academic degree. And since then, the results have been tremendous, with a new generation of nurses in the pipelines.
I am pleased to report in 2022, the nursing school and allied health professions at the University of the Bahamas produced over 100 graduates with a bachelor's science degree in nursing. At a critical time when there were major challenges in our healthcare system. I'm also pleased to state that we are about to take on an additional, I think, somewhere between 35 to 40 new nurses who just recently graduated from UB, and this is a step in the right direction. Additionally, there are 2 other colleges that have commenced bachelor's degree program in the Bahamas, mainly Southern College in New Providence and Tarif College in Grand Bahama.
Minister Darwell reminded that the new mental health bill has added terms, expanded clauses, and reasonings that are aimed at advancing and more adequately supporting 21st century nursing and midwives practice in the Bahamas. The government and 4M Harbour Island Limited signing a multi-million-dollar heads-of agreement for a development on the island affectionately called Bryland. The agreement has a price tag of $150 million. The boutique resort and marina has evolved from its opening in July of 2021 to now include 93 estate homes, cottages, and villas. Prime Minister Philip Davis noted that the $112 million has already been invested into the commercial ecosystem. He says this development represents a further capital investment into the island.
Gentlemen, I am delighted by the strong investor confidence this expansion represents, and I look forward to the benefits it will bring to that island. As the footprint of this project expands, so will the resultant benefits for the residents of Harbour Island and Northern Ocean. A resort village with retail shop means novel opportunities for Bahamian entrepreneurs to take a stake in one of the most vigorous markets in the country. New culinary destinations mean great employment prospects for professionals in the food and beverage industry, while a more diverse housing market promises to upset the trend toward depopulation that is so prevalent across our family islands.
The development on Harbour Island is expected to generate 125 to 210 jobs during the construction phase. Principal of the 4M Harbour Island Limited, Michael Weiner, expressed his gratitude to Prime Minister Philip Davis for his confidence in the project.
Work is underway. We've completed the marina, and we've completed 8 residential, well, we started construction on 8 residential units, 4 of which are completed, and 4 of which will be completed hopefully in the next 30, 45 days. We've completed installation of all the utilities underground. We've completed the grading of lots, and we've completed construction of a facility at the back of house, and we are near completion of 4 pickleball courts. Construction will continue uninterrupted, and it's my expectation that construction will continue over a period of time, extending another 5 years.
He gives an update as to how the completed marina has been attracting many more tourists to Harbour Island.
The marina is doing extremely well. We were virtually sold out over the holiday season. We remain busy as we speak. Rubis is near completion of installation of fuel. They've put in 9 20,000-gallon tanks. The marina has inslip fueling, inslip pump out. It has a fire suppression system, floating docks. It's really world class.
The Prime Minister notes that this investment is only one of many exciting projects for the Family Islands, as the government is busy securing the expertise and capital necessary to stimulate commerce throughout the country. And finally, in this segment, the Bay Street City Center is gearing up for a major facelift in the coming weeks. The Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation telling reporters on Tuesday that the project is on track. Our Destiny Johnson tells us more in this next report.
The Nassau Cruise Port, designed as a larger version of the Marina Village, is on track for the opening date in May. This according to Minister of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Deputy Prime Minister Chester Cooper, who says the construction will be a driver for further upgrades to Bay Street, which he says are about to begin.
We spent a lot of time already speaking with the stakeholders. We have issued demolition orders for 9 of the buildings east of East Street. We are talking with the art community to see how we might be able to do some beautification works. We're spending significant sums for remedial work, like cleaning and beautification, but we need everybody to play their part. We call on the building owners to make efforts to improve the exteriors of their buildings. We call on shop owners to make their store frontage more attractive. We call on entrepreneurs to offer authentically Bahamian goods and services.
Minister Cooper goes on to say that along with the Tourism Development Corporation, TDC, the government will create an incubation center which will be a marketplace for authentically Bahamian goods and services.
And we expect that this will open generally in line with the opening of the Nassau Cruise Port. Every step we make will be positive for the overall experience. But again, Ministry of Tourism can't do this alone. It takes all of the agencies of government, the police, the port, the Ministry of Works, who also happen to oversee the straw market, but they have been working hand in hand with us. We're going further. We're currently looking at draft legislation for the management of the city center of Bay Street. The Attorney General has been working on that diligently. We have a draft of that legislation out for consultation at the moment, and we hope to be able to present that to the public soon.
Chief Executive Officer and Director of the Nassau Cruise Port, Mike Mora, told the Bahama Business Outlook on January 19th that based on the number of passengers coming off the ship to explore the island, Nassau ranked 19th out of 20 and Grand Bahama ranked 20th out of 20 in the Caribbean. When asked what is being done to address the port in Grand Bahama, the tourism minister asserts that all TDC conversations in New Providence have been going on in Grand Bahama as well.
We were extremely pleased with what we saw in Grand Bahama, from West End to East End to Freeport itself. The number of possibilities that exist for the tourist experience to be improved on Grand Bahama Island itself, from fishing to the caves to sights to see on West and East, authentic Bahamian experiences that tourists can enjoy, tours, more tours, turtles, stingrays, dolphins. Really the depth of the product in Grand Bahama really needs to be celebrated. And Bahamians need to now get involved with seeing how they can cause the 500 tourists coming to Grand Bahama to become customers.
Minister Cooper reiterates the importance of our downtown city center and the cruise ports on both islands being cleaned up for the benefit of residents and for the tourism experience. For Jcn News, I'm Destiny Johnson.
Thanks for that report, Destiny. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.